So one of our points for our usability tests were that the weapon feedback wasn't very good and people couldn't tell when they were firing or how often they were firing. They were also trying to click to shoot instead of holding it down. So some points to fix this would be to increase the kickback on the gun so they can tell when a bullet is being fired, and have a new muzzle flash. So we've looked at some other games and we can see that when you fire a pistol or any kind of gun in a different game, there's a much bigger muzzle flash and it's quite over the top, but it just lets the player know that they've shot the gun. We can also do a new sound effect to fit the pistol, and we're going to change it to click to fire, as I said, because people weren't holding it down to shoot, which is currently how it's set to be. And we also need to add some hit effects for the enemies so we can know when you've actually hit them or if you've missed and hit something in the background.
On top of this point, the feedback when you're engaging in combat wasn't too great either, so we've decided to add like hit effects for where the bullets actually hit. So if you're even if you hit a object that isn't an enemy, we're just going to spawn a particle effect, which is going to make it a little bit more obvious where the bullet is hitting, as we're going to change it over to using a raycast based system instead. We're also going to update the reticule. So it's going to be a completely new reticule design, and it's going to change colour based on whether your weapon is in range of the enemy. So it's going to turn red if you're in range of the enemy and remain white if it's out of the range. And some of the feedback we had based on actually fighting with the Sentinels is that they have too much health. We're going to plan to reduce the health slightly, however, with the plan of changing the pistol firing to be a as fast as you can click type of system. We're going to have to play around with balancing the health system a little bit more to make sure that it doesn't make it too easy after this point.
So another piece of feedback we had was that it was harder to tell if you were taking enough damage. We have a hit marker currently, but it's not very intrusive, so until you start getting really low, it's hard to tell if you're taking damage. So a way we plan to change this is have a larger overlay that really looks like you've been hit, and have that persist for longer if your health is lower. So at first it will flash and then go away really quickly, and then as your health gets really low, it will stay around for longer. So that way players should feel the impact that they're getting hit a lot more than at the moment. Another piece of feedback we got was to do with the menus. All the menus open and close when you press their respective buttons, but the market has an X to back out and not any of the other menus do. So we're going to add a X to close for consistency, so that even if you've forgotten what button opens the inventory or what button opens the crafting system, you can get back out pretty quickly. Also, when you pause the game, pressing the escape button again doesn't resume the game, which most players expected it to. So we're going to change that so that you can just click resume, or you can press escape to get back into the game. Finally, one other piece of feedback we had was then when using search bars in the market, if you typed a letter that was bound to open a menu, for example the map or Q for quest, it would actually open that menu and back you out of the market. So we're going to plan to change this so that when you're interacting with the market and typing, you won't quit yourself out by accidentally pressing a different button.
So another piece of feedback we had was that the quest log being open on right click seemed really weird and most people didn't get on with it. So to fix this, we'll just move this to the Q key and keep the right mouse right click for the mining tool, which makes a lot more sense as it's another weapon type. Finally, some users found that some of the buttons on the keyboard were a stretch to get to, so the controls and crafting were K, and people didn't like having to move their hand that far across the keyboard, so we can just remap the controls so they're all more centered around WSD, which is your movement.